April is Indonesian Women's Rights Observer. She's ex-chief of the Women's Department at National Students Front at the University of Indonesia. So my first question for April is, how do feminists get the message across about women's rights in your country?
In order to answer this, we must first address the history of feminism in Indonesia. The first Indonesian Women Congress was held in Yogyakarta on December 22nd to December 25th. The purpose of holding this was to establish an organization of women that stands independently from other organizations. This Congress then agreed there was an urgency for an organizational federation of Indonesian women. Though issues that are being addressed in this Congress was more about femininity, domestic responsibilities, this Congress showed that many Indonesian women had taken initiative and to move and advocate independently. Then there was Gerwani, Gerakan Wanita Indonesia, which translates to Indonesian Women Movement in English, that was established on June 1950. Gerwani was a Marxist women organization that advocated for issues beyond women's domestic roles. Their advocacy includes gender equality, equal labor rights, and other women rights issues. Gerwani was the pioneer for Indonesian radical women's movement, but it was soon dispersed by Suharto, an Indonesian authoritarian figure in 1969, along with abhorrent anti-Marxist campaign. Indonesian women's movement now, the groups, the sectored and scattered movements, like there is no exactly a women's movement that stands differently from other organization or other groups. There is no big women movement in Indonesia that is radical or separated from other movements that advocate for women's rights. Women's movements are generally assimilated in other movements. As to how these organizations spread awareness, there are various methods of doing so. That includes holding Women's March every year and participating in many protests, other protests like May Day, for example, and everything. That's all for the answer.
Now we're going to go to Ligaya from the Philippines. She represents Haliya Women's Group. She wants to deliver the unheard voices of Filipinas regarding trans activism in the Philippines and also women's rights.
The biggest national democratic women group, Gabriela Women's Party, were promoting and campaigning through social media. But the mainstream women activist group failed to understand the threats of preaching transgenderism to women's sex-based rights. They are inviting people, especially youth, to attend their EDs or educational discussions, which is good. But months ago, I found out that they discussed the topic trans women are women, which is very surprising. Now we knew that what is the discussion is all about without attending the discussion. It is very indeed disappointing because I thought they are the ones who knows their ground of what they're fighting for. But now they don't seem to know the simple definition of the word woman and what are the means for one to truly say she is a feminist. What I got from them now is for you to be a feminist, it means being a support system mainly for dysphoric men.
We're going to now go to Michelle Morales. She is the Women's Human Rights Campaign country contact for the Dominican Republic. And I'm going to ask the first question. How do feminists get the message across about women's rights in your country?
With honest campaigns, sending letters to the House of Representatives, launching press releases, carry out peaceful marches, requiring the intervention of international organizations. Unfortunately, the predominant sector of feminine makes an ostentation that is only reflected in the measurement that only an ostentation that is only reflected in the media, but not in the measurement of the state.